I am delighted to have the opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker, Jan Sexton, President of New York University. A few times in the past, I had the privilege of being introduced by Dr. Sexton, but this is the first time that I have an opportunity to return the favor. I promise I'll be brief. Dr. Sexton is not an immigrant, unless you consider his native Brooklyn a foreign land. But he embodies personal qualities that are well worth emulating by immigrants and non-immigrants alike. One of such quality is that Dr. Sexton is passionate about education. He is probably the only president of a major university who is teaching a full load of 4 complete courses per academic year. One of Jan Sexton's very popular courses is called Baseball as a Road to God. I should mention that Maritza and I were the beneficiaries of a simplified and shortened version of this course when last fall we were invited to the Yankee Stadium for a baseball game. What an unforgettable experience that was. I don't know whether John will be talking about baseball tonight. We left the choice of the topic up to him. But I'm sure that whatever he's going to say will be fascinating and inspiring. So, Dr. Sexton, I ask you up to the podium.
It is with great trepidation, and especially in this context, that I would correct such a wonderful introduction. But there were two grievous errors. The first is nobody anywhere, not even when I'm sitting in front of the golden stethoscope that our faculty of our medical school gave me in what was nothing but rank pandering for the favor of the president of the university, refers to me as doctor. And especially not in this context, when there are real doctors that are present. I'm just John. And I'm John, and I want to put in my own nomination for being John, the president of the Jan and Marissa fan club, which I think everyone is a member of here. The second error is to refer to the fact that I carry a teaching load. I view this as a teaching privilege, not a load at all. My partner of 25 years now, Marty Lipton, who was my chair during my time at the law school and now during my time as president of the university, understands that I was put on earth to be in the classroom. And very early on, he got the point that I couldn't do any of the rest of what I do. I'd lose my moorings if I wasn't in my classrooms here and in Abu Dhabi with my students. And each time I walk in, I come out of those classes utterly and completely exhausted, but utterly and completely energized. Now, those are my corrections, but Jan, thank you so much, first of all, for the introduction, and second of all, for the privilege of speaking this evening. And now I'm going to make a request that we stop taking pictures, because I don't want to be on America's Most Wanted. And you guys are pros, and when you've taken 40, that should be enough. Okay, now to my remarks. It is true that Brooklyn is the center of the universe. And for those of you that don't get that, you could begin to take notes on the way I pronounce certain words, because even now, in this late part of my life, I proudly preserve my Brooklyn accent. And it is true that with Brooklyn, not Manhattan, as its center, New York City itself then becomes the center of the universe. And it has been for centuries, even in this infant country. And we should never forget the fact that we are an infant country. When I say, as I frequently do, some of you have heard me say it, that there are only 85 institutions in the world that exist today the way they did 500 years ago, by definition, none of those institutions can be in the United States, because we are an infant nation. It is important and relevant to the rest of what I will say that 70 of the 85 are universities. And that says something immediately that is worth noting, and that is that we humans are human, are what we are, because of the power of thought. And universities are about thought. But back to the city in which we sit. From the time of New Amsterdam, before we were New York, this was a welcoming, cosmopolitan city. We got that more even from the Dutch than from the English, but then we nurtured it ourselves. And of course, today, as we sit here, 40% of the citizens of this city were born in other countries. We are the first city, we're the first city in the globe that can say that in its public schools, every country in the world is represented by a child born in that country. We are literally, in this city, the world in miniature. And one of the things that we, as a university that was founded by our founder, Albert Gallatin, Jefferson and Madison's Secretary of Treasury, one of the things we say to our students immediately is, come here only if you want to be ecosystematic with this great city. If you want to be, in Gallatin's words, in and of the city. And if you go out into the neighborhoods of New York, if you get out to the boroughs, you literally can hear the prayers or songs. You can taste the food of any nation in the world. We truly are the world in miniature. And that means that the basic DNA of this city is the DNA of immigrants. And think about what that DNA is. Okay, inherently, the immigrant DNA is there are better days ahead. Tomorrow will be better. Inherently, the immigrant believes that, and notice how odd this thought is as I say it, that sacrifice today for a better tomorrow, even if it's not for us, even if it's for our kids and our grandkids, sacrifice today is worth it. Think forward. Every immigrant thinks forward. It strikes me that perhaps never before, at least in the history of this infant country, has this immigrant attitude been necessary. Necessary. Now you have to understand, to the extent I'm a doctor, that comes from my doctorate in religion, not from the elevated LLB to the Doctor of Laws. So this is the theologian speaking. If that attitude of the immigrant ever was necessary, at least in this infant country, It's necessary today, perhaps for humankind. We live in a very, very axial inflection point, it strikes me, because the world is miniaturizing. We've just discovered with our economy, we should have known all along, with our culture, with ideas, with the migrations of people, that gating strategies will not work in the world ahead. Even societies that try to lock down are finding that the walls that they use to lock down are more and more penetrable. So how is this new world that's developing at this inflection point, how is this miniaturization going to play out? Is it going to play out badly? Is it going to be a clash of civilizations? Or is it going to be a tremendous opportunity for us to move forward as humankind? The signs in this country are not good. One could make a case that thought is dying. We live in a world of undifferentiated facts, where speakers now are entitled not just to their own viewpoints, but to their own facts. We live in a world where that has led to a kind of viewpoint entitlement. The one thing that none of my students are entitled to say in class is, well, it's my opinion. You've got to have a reason for your viewpoint. We live in a world of slogan dialogue. America truly has beginning to develop an allergy to complexity and nuance. And what we've seen is inevitable, the rise of the demagogic class, and with it all the nativism that demagogues always use. And this happens as simultaneously we've lost our ability to trust. Now, Jan pointed out that I teach a course called Baseball as a Road to God, and I think I know the moment at which this collapse of trust began. And it was, of course, for those of you that know your history well, 1958, when a man, named O'Malley ripped the heart out of Brooklyn and moved the Dodgers to the plastic city of Los Angeles. And if the Dodgers could leave, if that institution could be taken from us, it was just inevitable that so also Vietnam would occur, and Watergate, and the collapse of the moral authority of the bishops, and then of our corporate leaders. This just flowed from that original sin by O'Malley. But there is a serious point here. I remember when Marty and I welcomed to the NYU Board of Trustees a person some of you know by the name of Evan Chesler. And I've never forgotten what Evan said the night that he got up to accept induction into the NYU Board of Trustees. He said he grew up in the Grand Concourse in the Bronx. And his dad had not gone to high school, let alone to college. And he would come home from high school and then from NYU, where he went on a scholarship undergraduate, and then NYU Law School, and he'd be filled with ideas and issues of public policy about which he wanted to talk to his dad. And his father would say to him, "Don't worry, Evan. They're taking care of it. They're taking care of it." And he said that night about 9 years ago, when we inducted him, "I never knew who they were. And now I realize I'm part of them." And that was a very touching story, as I say, 9 or 10 years ago. The sad thing, ladies and gentlemen, is today, if there's a father at a dinner table talking to his son, and the same issues come up, the father's probably saying, "They're screwing us." 85% of Americans, according to the most recent poll, don't trust their neighbors. So exactly at this time when thought is in danger of dying, our institutions are losing the respect of our people. Here we come to tonight, because there is a counter. There is the counterpoint of the university. There is a belief in science. There is a belief in art that is alive and well in the land, and we celebrate it tonight. Not just in the commitment of Jan and Marissa to it, but to the Vilcek Foundation's commitment to it, to the commitment of everybody in this room to it. And there is a place where that immigrant faith and hope and optimism and an understanding that the key to society is planting a tree under which somebody else will sit and being willing to see it grow and the importance of nurturing it. Now, what I am here to say is that we here in this room understand that. We understand the counterpuntal point. And whether it's quixotic or not, and I don't think it is, because I do believe in a kind of progressive view of humankind, and I do believe when we get to this kind of inflection point that if enough of us gather together and push forward, we can win a victory. For God's sake, if we can't win a victory for thought, what is there? But it requires each of us, every time we get, to confront those who would have it otherwise, whether they be leaders in the chattering class or the political class, or simply, as I was just sharing with some friends at the table, simply a woman in the rainforest of the Amazon who looks at people who have no idea what New York is, who are living in the depths of poverty. And when asked the question, what do you mean they chose this life? She says, if they wanted to, they could do better. That kind of person, even on a boat in the Amazon, when you're going to spend another week with her, has to be confronted. And every single one of us has to fight the battle on behalf of thought. Now, here I close by saying, as each of us do this, we have an extraordinary set of role models incarnated in Jan and Marissa. 47 years ago, they fled communist Czechoslovakia. Jan, a microbiologist. Marissa, an art historian. Jan and Marissa joined together in our NYU family when he comes into our medical school on our faculty, which he's now graced for 47 years. He, with that immigrant attitude of pushing forward, committed to the frontiers of knowledge being expanded, persisting for good. She, at the sweet spot, dedicated to the soul of humanity and always there by his side. Together they teach us that knowledge advances and beauty advance hand in hand. This is why our university gave Jan the Gallatin Medal in 2005. This is why I was pleased to take them to their first baseball game ever, and was very pleased that night when he made me commit to come here tonight. This is why I walked with my back to the gazing eye of the Secretary General of the UN, who was wondering why I wasn't going to dinner with him after the conference we had just held together, because I wanted to be here to celebrate thought with two great colleagues and friends. I say thank you very, very much.